You're someone who's just finished school, university, but despite years of learning, you still have no clue what you want to do with the rest of your life. For whatever reason, things feel super strange and you're just left in a pocket of unknowingness. I went through the exact same thing that you did, and now my life is happier than ever. I have more clarity and more purpose, and I just go about my day-to-day structure with way more integrity and intention. My mission in this video is to help you do the exact same thing that I did. If you're interested in that, make sure you stick around till the end of the video because I'll basically be uncovering what you need to do specifically so that you can basically get your life back. So if I had to guess, you've gone through years and years and years of education and learning and revising for tests and doing exams and basically preparing for things that don't actually mean much for your life. You've been in school, you've been in university, you've been in college, you've been in all of these different environments, and you've basically just been doing the same stuff year on year. The thing about school is school's literally a box. It doesn't get you to think about anything realistic. It doesn't get you to think about things that you actually want to do with your life. All it is a structure you have to follow because for whatever reason the government's decided that you need to stay in this box. You've been designed to follow orders and follow instructions, not think for yourself and basically think how you will. Everything you learn about in school literally doesn't mean anything. It's all theory, it doesn't mean much. And if you think I'm lying about this, just remember when you did your last set of exams, whether it was GCSEs or A-levels or any big sort of exams that you had to do, think about what that means now, right? Think about what that means now. I did my GCSEs a while back, and when I think back to what I learned and what I had to do, I didn't actually learn anything. And it didn't actually mean anything. Everything I learned in those exam papers, every single question that I answered, nothing appeals to my day-to-day life now, and it's just not helping. With me, I had a major realization, and this was about in year 10, so I would have been about 14, 15 at the time. And I remember I had the exact same realization I just spoke about. I remember this one time I was sitting in maths and I remember I was just looking around my class. With me, I always sat at the front with like one of my friends. I used to just sit at the front of the class and the whole class was basically behind me. And I remember this one time, I think my teacher was explaining something on the board and I remember I was just sitting there and I was just like, what is actually the meaning and what is actually the point of what I'm doing? I remember she was writing some stuff on the board like my teacher. And everything she was writing just seemed foreign to me. Like obviously I'd been revising for it, I'd been doing the exam questions and the tests that we had to do in class and like all the necessary work. But I remember just sat there looking at the board and thinking, how does this cross over to my actual life and what does it actually mean? And then I remember I looked around the class and everyone was pretty much just focused on the board and I was kind of just in a moment where I was just zoned out. When I was zoned out, I just had this thought and this feeling that everything I'd been learning and everything I'd been doing hadn't actually meant anything and it wasn't actually benefiting my life. When you're in school, you're kept to a structure for years. You're not asked to question things. You're not asked to basically think about why you have this lesson there. You're basically given a timetable, you're given a structure, and you're told to follow it without questioning anything. And in my opinion, this is what really changed things because when I realized this, everything in my life changed. I remember when I used to go to school, I used to always be in the flow. I always knew what I was doing. I always knew what I was like going to next, what lesson I had, what I was going to be doing in that lesson. But then I remember like once I finished school, all of that dissolved. I remember when I finished my exams in year 11 and when I finished school and even in holidays as well. I used to have this day-to-day structure Monday to Friday. I knew exactly what I was doing, what times I was waking up, what times I'd be going to the gym after school, what times I'd be going to bed, what times I'd be eating this meal and that meal. I kind of knew exactly what I was doing. But then when the holidays would roll around, when the weekends would roll around, and even when I had just finished school, I had no structure anymore. That structure that I have and the structure that you have when you're in school or if you are in school just dissolves. It just disappears and you haven't got the same framework that you were used to dealing with where you knew what you were doing. And now you just feel like the meaning of life's pointless because for all these years you've been instructed and told what to do and now you've been given your own freedom and your own intellect. You can't actually do anything. There's someone probably watching this thinking, yeah, but school's so important. I learned this, and I learned all these different things. If school's so important, let me just ask you this one thing. If school meant something, you wouldn't be confused when you finished school. When you left year 11, when you left your school for the holidays, you wouldn't feel confused. If you felt confused, then it just goes to show that what you've been learning and what you've been practicing for hasn't actually meant anything and it hasn't benefited your life in real time. What I want you to do is build real clarity, real purpose, and actually have a direction, not just for this time period of your life, maybe 1 year, 2 years, for the rest of your life. I want you to build the fundamentals that actually cross over everywhere. So when you come back to this video a few years later, a few weeks later, you basically realize that, shit, like this guy's actually changed my life. The number one thing I want you to do, and this is the biggest takeaway from this video, is allow yourself to be bored. In the modern day, we're literally bombarded with everything. We've got music, social media, junk food. Every avenue of your life that you can think about is basically just a bombardment. It distracts you, it nullifies you. What you really need to do is sometimes just sit there and just be bored. Like just sit there and just think, like, no music, no distractions, just sit in an empty room or sit in a room or sit somewhere quiet and just allow your brain and like allow your mind to just process things. Like just sit there, maybe you're in your room at night or maybe you're sat there by yourself. This usually happens to people at night time where they haven't got any music and they're about to go to bed, and that's when all the thoughts start coming in. Oh, I need to start doing this. I need to start doing that. There's this thing I need to do tomorrow. Most people don't have that until necessary moments like shower thoughts, right? And then before bed. What you need to do is embrace more of that. Literally sit there without your phone, without music, and just start to think more and just embrace boredom. If you're bored, good, because what will happen in those moments is something that could change your life, because you could come up with an idea that could change everything for your future. The thing is, what I've seen is people numb themselves to escape temporary like discomfort. Like for example, instead of sitting there and just being quiet on like a bus or something, or sitting there and just looking outside on a train, what people do is they scroll on their phone, they listen to music, they're in their own little world, and that world, it tricks you into believing that you're someone you're not, and it basically gives you a false sense of basically who you are. So don't use all these forms of instant gratification to numb yourself. Sit down and literally allow yourself to feel uncomfortable. Allow yourself to come up with the thoughts that basically trigger you. Like for example, when you're sat there by yourself, you'll basically realize that you might haven't have gone to the gym for the last 2 weeks, and you actually need to start going. But usually what would have happened is you would have just numbed yourself and continued scrolling and just ignored the thought. Now you're sat there with that thought. You're basically realizing that you're basically being more accountable. You're being more accountable. You're basically giving your hand to your future self so that you can bridge the connection, so that you can level up and actually grow and become someone that you actually want to be. I remember I had this conversation with one of my friends, and we went on a walk and we were just sat by this river, and we were just talking, and I was just talking to him about how, like, when you have all these forms of stimulation and all these forms of like habits, no one actually sits down to realize that they're not actually using their actual thoughts. Like they're just being blindsided and not actually thinking things through. If you had no distractions, you'd be sat in front of your real self and you'd actually be taking real accountability for the actions and the mistakes you've made in your life. The thing is, when you're in that moment of just quietness and you're not actually like distracted, you'll come up with a goal or obsession or something that you really want to focus on. When you have that, it's super important that you write that down and you store it somewhere, because that's the real part of your brain and that's the authentic self that's coming out. It's not school, it's not social media warping you into thinking that you need to be someone you're not or do something that everyone else is doing. It's your own intellectual brain telling you exactly what you want to do and exactly what you need to do to get to the next step and progress in your life. So then once you have that goal, once you have that obsession, go all in on that. Go all in on that one thing and just fully immerse yourself in that one thing. That one thing could be something like the gym. If you're going to the gym and you like the gym and you think that's a huge goal for yourself, write down the goal you want from it. Write down the start point that you are at now and what you want by the end. And then absolutely revolve everything in your life around the gym. It could be the gym, it could be school. It doesn't matter what it is. What you need to understand is that you need to find a goal that is like a bigger vision for yourself and for your future, and just obsess and align every single thing in your life to that thing. And this is something that I learned from one of my friends, and it's that he said something and it really stuck with me. And it's that priorities don't exist, there's just priority. So there's no such thing as having priorities. There's not 1, 2, 3. You can't have multiple priorities. You can just have one. So for example, you watching this right now, you might have a goal of basically going to the gym, right? That could be an example of one. You need to basically put that on the step. Like that needs to be up there, and that's the only priority. You can't have priority of this. You can only have one. Revolve everything around the goal that you set for yourself. Revolve everything around centering it on the mission that you have. So for example, if you want to lose a certain amount of kilos, for example, if you weigh like I don't know, like 95 now and you want to get to 90, you basically want to set up a system and a track to go from 95 to 90. It could take 3-4 weeks, it could take 5 weeks, but what you want to do is you want to set the goal of losing 5 kilograms, for example, set up a system for achieving that and go all in on doing that, on making that goal. So for example, what that could look like is reducing calories. It could be getting more steps in. It could be doing cardio. It could be training harder, right? And then all of a sudden, you have this goal of losing 5 kilos, but we've basically come up with 4 points that revolve around it, right? So what are they again? It's reducing the calories, it's doing the steps, it's doing the cardio, it's training hard. So once you have these 4 things, you can literally incorporate that into your day-to-day life to help you achieve that goal. And then all of a sudden, this one goal that you have has become the center point of your life. And now, only now, you've got clarity, you've got purpose, you've got direction for what you want to do for your day, right? Because now you have the calories, for example, you can allocate meal times of what you're going to eat and when you're going to eat. And then you can allocate times you're going to do steps. And then you're going to allocate time to go to the gym. All of this takes multiple hours, by the way, like all together. And now you have an obsessive goal that you can go all in on. And now you can actually make real progress. So to summarize, allow yourself to be bored. Allow yourself to sit in the pocket of just not knowing what to do. Reduce like all the bad habits you're doing, if not eliminate them. That's what I'd highly recommend. And just set goals, right? Set a goal, write down what you want and just make progress towards that. Anyways, I hope this video has helped you and I hope it's really meant a lot. I know I've kind of yapped on about quite a few things, but I'm just hoping that you've understood what I've had to say and what it actually means. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you can like and subscribe. That way you get immediate access to any new piece of content I release. It also helps my channel out because it helps my videos and my content get to the people who really need it. But as always, there's one last thing I'll say before I leave, and it's that always strive for excellence because great things will come your way.